duly elected and sent here, I take offense to it because I can tell you that I will never give up my moral authority to speak on behalf of the people who sent me here. And the bullyism might work outside, but it don't work in here, and it don't work with this member of parliament.
Madam Speaker, on Wednesday, the 3rd of July, 2024, the outer bands of Beryl, a Category 3 hurricane, passed through Jamaica. Since then, many Jamaican households and businesses have been without electricity and telecom services. I have toured sections of the worst affected communities on multiple occasions and seen firsthand the devastation caused by Beryl. I have had several meetings with the management of JPS, Flow, and Digicel in an effort to fast-track the restoration of services. I am in daily communication with the leadership of these providers and will remain vigilant in the pursuit of normality for every community and customer across the length and breadth of Jamaica. Madam Speaker, I know that many JPS workers and contractors are in the field working long hours and themselves maybe have been dealing with issues in their homes and families as it relates to damage caused by Beryl. Despite the fact, I have major issues with the response management in relation to where we are after 3 weeks. These include JPS's original estimate given to Cabinet for restoration 2 weeks ago that has been missed. JPS's deadlines published for parish by parish restoration, which has been missed. And let me just state, Madam Speaker, that I got JPS to agree to give 3-day schedules showing the areas that are projected to be restored every 3 days, published on their website and all over social media, and I share it with my parliamentary colleagues on both sides. Areas where the JPS has indicated that are restored, and upon checks made, they are not fully restored. What do I mean by that, Madam Speaker? They say sections, and I have a situation just yesterday where the member from North Central Clarendon showed me sections of Moko. And when I made inquiries and asked him to give me evidence, over 50% of Moko was not restored. So therefore, Madam Speaker, we have to give accurate information and detailed information to reduce the frustration and the misery index. Madam Speaker, based on the missed deadlines, the projected date for full restoration keeps moving further and further away. And again, I want to be specific. When you miss deadlines that were set for the 17th to the 19th, and you move them over into the 20th to the 22nd, which ended yesterday, then obviously the workload has not lessened, and therefore other areas that are to come back on track are pushed back. It's common sense. Madam Speaker, as of my last meeting with JPS management on Saturday morning, I was not satisfied with the answers to my many questions that JPS truly understands the pain and suffering of the people of Jamaica and the JPS customers after 3 weeks. Since then, I have taken the following steps. I contacted the OUR and asked them to convene a meeting with the JPS as the regulators. Subsequently, on receipt of the letter from JPS for force majeure clause to be introduced, I subsequently sent that to the AGC, the Attorney General's Chambers, and the OUR for their response to me. Yesterday, Madam Speaker, I had a meeting in between Cabinet with the 3 government directors on the JPS board. Firstly, to find out whether or not they were aware of the decision by JPS to send out what I call the insensitive and unacceptable estimated bills for persons who right now don't have electricity. Subsequent to that discussion with them, I asked them to, first of all, they categorically stated that they did not and that there was no board meeting that was held to discuss that. And by virtue of the JPS statement, you can see that they are depending on the license. So they didn't need to go anywhere and get any approval because the license that was granted in January 2016, signed by my esteemed colleague and friend from East Kingston and Port Royal, that is what they are using. So let me just say to my friend on that side, and to the members of that side, you have no moral authority on this matter. Leave it to me. Leave it to me. Let me deal with it. Okay? And finally, this statement in Parliament today is to ensure that it is recorded in Hansard and communicated to all members of the House and their constituents the current state of restoration efforts. According to the breakdown, which does not include customers in St. Elizabeth, as of yesterday, 19,000 JPS customers remain without supply. And I want to go through it, Madam Speaker, please allow me the time. For Kingston and St. Andrew, and remember, I'm reporting from a JPS document because I know that there are many members in here who will not be in agreement with the data that I'm giving you. For Kingston and St. Andrew, the JPS says that there are 92 customers without service, and the projected full restoration for the parish of Kingston and St. Andrew is July 30th. This document is public document. Members of Parliament, it's on the website. That's Kingston and St. Andrew. For St. Catherine, they say that there's 1,267 customers that have not been restored, and the projection date for that is July 24th. Remember, it's not me, so you know. I'm reading from a document. This document is current, Leader. This is current. As a matter of fact, it was done yesterday, so these numbers should have reduced. For Clarendon, they say 3,107, and the restoration date is July 27th. Now, those of us who are in this house and on the ground will know that as I read these numbers, the numbers that are on this document as it relates to what is happening on the ground in the constituencies do not align. In Clarendon, 3,107, it's correct. In Manchester, they say that there's 1,610 without restoration, and July 30th is the date for that. In St. Elizabeth, the projected timeline for that is August 5th for full restoration. And some parts, July 19th. So between July 19th and August 5th. They have not given me that. That's the only parish that they have not given me. Westmoreland is 1,013 with a date of between July 31st and August 5th. Hanover, listen to this one, 4,263 with a date of July 31st. St. James, 1,863 with a date for restoration by July 31st. Trelawney, 1,740 with a date of July 27th. St. Anne, 765 with a date of deadline of August 4th. St. Mary, 1,174 with a date of July 27th. And St. Mary has 3 pages. St. Thomas, 70 customers for July 24th. And last but not least, Portland, 1,562 for a deadline of July 27th. I suspect that they are talking about West Portland alone, because I can speak categorically to the fact that Portland, one of the least affected parishes, is one of the worst in relation to restoration. Now, I do know that Portland geographically has its challenges, so I give and take. However, Madam Speaker, I give it to you as I get it. Madam Speaker, on Sunday, after coming off the tour of 3 parishes and 5 constituencies in the worst affected areas, I decided to create my own online mechanism to receive feedback from the public. And the feedback has been alarming. Within a 24-hour period, at my last check, there was almost 400 JPS customers that had indicated that their respective communities remain unaccounted for or for underpublished JPS work schedule. Madam Speaker, 3 weeks in to burial, it's unacceptable. JPS was asked, what about the parishes that were least affected and still have not been restored? That is the cry of the people. To be without power and feeling left out will lead to despair and frustration, as we are seeing on a daily basis. I have shared the data with JPS, and I'm demanding that every community, unrepresented or unaccounted for, be added, and that communication be made to these customers directly using whatever methods the JPS has at its disposal. Madam Speaker, I'm also awaiting the report on the outcome of the meeting between the JPS and the OUR. Based on the results of that, it is my intention to call a meeting with the management, the board, and the shareholders of JPS so they can further understand my concerns and for them to give me a detailed schedule of locations for customers still not connected and a firm schedule with timelines for them to address this. And most important in this will be what additional resources are being engaged for this to be done. Madam Speaker, with a schedule in hand to ensure conformity, then that we can monitor to see that it is done. If the JPS cannot hold themselves to the schedules that they set, then I will. Madam Speaker, let us move to the thorny issue of the estimated bills. I want to make the position of the government and this minister very clear. Jamaica should never be put in a position again where a utility license granted seemingly protects the provider more than the customers. I'm going to repeat that. Jamaica should never be put in a position again where a utility license granted seemingly protects the provider more than the customers. The bill that was sent out, and by the way, it's not just sent out, it has been received. I have gotten at least 100.
House Leader, the minister's time for speaking has expired.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The member's time have been expired, Madam Speaker. I beg to move that the member be allowed 10 more minutes to complete his presentation. May it please you, Madam Speaker.
The question before the House is that the minister's time be extended for 10 minutes to allow him to complete his presentation. Those in favor? Minister?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So as I was saying, in relation to this matter of estimated bills, I can clearly state that those bills have actually been sent out, and people have been receiving them up to this moment as I speak. And the bottom line is that JPS has done so relying on the conditions of the license. I want to make it very clear that every customer of JPS, commercial, residential, have been impacted by beryl. So it does not matter whether or not you have been restored or you have not. Because if you have been restored and you are in a particular business and the people around you have lost all their livelihood and all their roofs, then it will have an impact on your business going forward. And therefore, it cannot be seen as if persons who don't have electricity, although they are the worst affected, that there's not others that will take time to get back on track and on their feet. And that is why I'm still at a loss to understand how they could do something like that, even with the legal side on their, the legal aspect of it on their side. This is not a matter of legality, this is a matter of morality. Madam Speaker, I don't know who took that decision, but I think that somebody must be held accountable for a decision like that in a time like this. So, Madam Speaker, I will just say to you that I had the occasion to meet the head of the Cayman utility firm who came here to bring his linesmen, who, as you know, Cayman went through a catastrophic hurricane in recent years. And I took the time to ask him, what did you do? And his answer was simple. Privately owned company on the Toronto Stock Exchange. They took 75 days to restore the last customer. And they did not issue a bill until the 76th day. And even in issuing those bills, they gave concessions, they gave discounts, and they gave payment plans. And that is what any reasonable company would make a compassionate decision such as that. Let us be reminded, Madam Speaker, that JPS is owned 19.9% government, and its balance is owned between East West Power and Maribyrnong, two gigantic conglomerates. When I asked the gentleman from the Cayman utility, he indicated that they did not have an emergency fund as we do, but what they did was to draw down on emergency lines of credit that they established for situations such as this. We have an emergency fund in Jamaica to the value of $50 million, which comes from the tariffs that we pay every month. And therefore, there must have been some kind of arrangement that could have been made to cushion and not come to a situation where the government is at odds with the JPS. It's not a good situation, but it is needed at this time, and I'm hoping that JPS will do the right thing, as we all make mistakes in life, and come with something for the JPS customers in the coming hours. Madam Speaker, the JPS has written to invoke force majeure and obtain relief from their obligations on the current license, but have yet to outline any form of restitution or reprieve for the customers who have been disrupted over the last 3 weeks. For context, Madam Speaker, Flow and Digicel have both communicated their own mitigative and restorative measures to the government and to their customers. And again, we hope and expect that the JPS will be moved to do the same and do the right thing and do it now. The JPS, Madam Speaker, stated that it's working from the terms of a condition of a license, as I indicated earlier, granted in January 2016. The JPS has further stated the license gives them the power to use estimated bills, for which they have done several times before. Madam Speaker, if the JPS cannot see beyond the legal and appreciate the moral and ethical position that so many Jamaicans are expecting them to do, then it is in fact a dark day in Jamaica, literally and figuratively. The JPS license comes up for renegotiation in 2027, and we must make sure as a country that any new license protects the people and not just the JPS. Madam Speaker, the lack of electricity is not only affecting the ability of citizens to access power, but also the ability of the National Water Commission to fully service their customers across all parishes. Madam Speaker, if water is life, then the JPS must recognize the current position as life-threatening. This is not just figuratively, but also literal. Several persons are subject to medical conditions that require electricity, whether it be from refrigeration or energy purposes. This cannot continue, and with the help of our regional partners now in the island, I urge the utility providers to pull out all stops to ensure that they meet the deadlines and expectations to restore all NWC pumps and NIC pumps for irrigation for the farmers of Jamaica. Further to this, I am in contact with the USAID for support, as I make no apologies in stating in this House that I need to make sure that JPS has the capacity to effect full restoration in the timelines needed, which is now. Now. While my powers as minister may be limited in respect to this private company and the deployment of their teams, this government will do everything legally possible to ensure that we reinforce the ability of the JPS to have power restored across the island as soon as possible. Madam Speaker, let me make it clear that I have no authority to direct the JPS as to where they must send teams or not send teams. I hear that they are saying that I am diverting people from one parish to the next. Well, if I was doing that, Portland wouldn't be in the situation that they are today. This is not about partisan politics. This is about working together collaboratively to make sure that we do everything possible to get everybody back up on track. And all I'm here to do is to make sure that I stay on top of the JPS on behalf of the citizens of this country. Madam Speaker, I first made the announcement that there is precedent for receiving external assistance in crisis as this, and I have welcomed teams from across the region who are ready and willing to hit the ground and improve restoration efforts. In the past, there have been periods of months without restoration following a hurricane, much weaker than Beryl. I remember Sandy in 2012. This is 2024, and we cannot hold ourselves and the JPS to those standards. The people demand better, and the people deserve better based on the times that we are living in. In conclusion, I'm fully aware firsthand of the pain and suffering of the people. I'm fully aware of the demonstrations taking place in several communities. I take this opportunity to assure the residents that I hear the pleas and I see the frustration. But in truth, these demonstrations will not help, they will hinder. Currently, I have the utility provider requesting leave to avoid areas for fear of safety of their teams. These demonstrations will only serve to put your communities further down on the list for restoration by the JPS, as they will think their safety and that their teams are at risk. While I understand the frustration being faced by my fellow Jamaicans, I assure that I am in contact with all 62 MPs, and the Cabinet remains committed to ensuring that we hold JPS accountable and effect the timely restoration of electricity to all communities. I must laud the efforts of many communities that have been rallying together with the NGOs and the private sector to ease the burden. Our true sense of unity and nationality has been on display with these efforts to ensure we are our brother's keeper. And if you will allow me, I'll just tell you a story that I told the Prime Minister yesterday. I went to Clarendon on Sunday, and we were driving past two ladies, elderly ladies, coming from church, one with a stick and one hobbling along, up in age. And the MP stopped and was talking to them, and they saw me in the back seat. And they said, "Who is that?" I said, "Yes, it's me." Wind down the window, speaking to them. And they were complaining that they didn't have light, they didn't have water, and they were hoping to get it back soon. And the little lady said to me, she says, "Why you look so troubled?" I said, "Wouldn't you? You don't see what I'm seeing and experiencing." And she said, "But you have life, so you must be thankful." and God will take us through this. So the spirit of Jamaica is alive and well, and that is what is keeping us going. Why we are not having so much more difficulties getting through this. So I ask everybody, when they are in the anxious mood and frustration, to just remember what that lady said, because it will stick with me for the rest of my life. So, Madam Speaker, as stated, there's work to be done, and much has been accomplished. We are not satisfied and will not be satisfied until all customers can return to a sense of normality. And then we'll begin to chart a new way forward to ensure that these conversations are not had in the wake of every storm, but that we learn from the lessons of this disaster and put our best foot forward for the next generation to experience. Madam Speaker, I thank you, and I ask the Jamaican people once again to have some patience, despite I know that the patience has run out and come back 5 times already. You have my commitment and the commitment of the government and the commitment of all parliamentarians in here that we are going to work together to make sure and restore normality in the shortest possible time. You have my word. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
So I'm so happy, PM, that you have joined me. Prime Minister, I listened to the Minister's presentation, and my own view as to the post-burial scenario in relation to JPS is the same. I believe that things have been too slow, too haphazard, unrealistic expectations or projections were made, and as a result, people have become frustrated. And I can cite examples from over here. And it was clear to me that there really wasn't a lot of pre-planning that took place in anticipation of what the world was describing as a very active hurricane season, and we have seen it. So there are still early days in the hurricane season, so while JPSCO has to focus its attention on immediate restoration, it must not at the same time, it must at the same time prepare itself for the rest of the season. Some people will be upset when I say that we were lucky with Beryl, despite all of the hardship in Clarendon, Manchester, and St. Elizabeth, and elsewhere. It wasn't a Gilbert, and we give thanks to God for that. And as we go through the restoration, I want to bring one matter to the attention of the JPSCO, that as they restore electricity, people are getting fluctuations in voltage. And I have to warn the JPSCO, because the minister did not allude to the fact that some time ago, I passed a Jamaica Consumer Protection Law that gave the consumers rights. And if their refrigeration, if their equipment are damaged during low voltage, they can go to court and sue JPSCO and recover significant damages. So I'm warning JPSCO to be careful as you go about this period of restoration to make sure that your voltage is correct. Madam Speaker, on the billing issue, because I was amazed and appalled by the notice that I got on Friday, which indicated that I, as a consumer, would be subject to an estimated bill. And I know the minister is only upset is because when I saw that I was so upset, I went out first. And I'm sorry, Minister, if I beat you to it. But I went out first, and I had to. And I had to, because it was unconscionable. And I will not take that back. It was unconscionable. Especially because it would provide JPSCO with an undeserved windfall. And it was being done in the context of sufferation. And it is wrong. The minister has spoken about force majeure. Any village lawyer will tell you that in any contract that is done, there is a provision for acts of God. And in Madam Speaker, in 2001, when I wasn't the minister, there was an all-island license granted to the JPSCO. And in it, the provisions of force majeure that was adjudicated on by the OUR after every hurricane, after COVID. The OUR has adjudicated on force majeure, and especially in relation to estimated bills. But you know, the license that I signed in 2016 preceded another license, which was signed in 2011. I wonder who was in government in 2011. And you know, I don't like to do this now. I don't like the tit for tat. But no, the elections were in December 2011. I became minister in January 2012. And those same terms are replicated in the 2016 license. You know, I don't like to call names of ministers and stuff. All I'm saying to you, don't go down that road. In fact, the 2016 license was a good license. It made significant improvements on what was there in 2011. You ever hear about net billing? Huh? Yeah? No, you can. I gave 700 licenses for net billing before 2016. Nothing has happened since my time. Right? All what we have done in terms of renewables, those came out about because of negotiation that I did to incorporate those provisions in a new licensing regime. And I'm pleased and proud to have been a part of that government. So, Madam Speaker, I have done a fulsome article on the provisions in that license. I have indicated what are the issues surrounding estimated bills, how the OUR has adjudicated over the time, including in COVID, because it was raised by JPSCO in COVID. But, Madam Speaker, the reason, same 10 minutes. 10 minutes, man.
House Leader.
Taking up my bird, man. 10 minutes.
No, 5. He knows the rules of the game and know how to work with it. Madam Speaker.
House Leader,
Yes.
the member's time has expired.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The member's time for speaking having been expired, I beg to move that he be allotted 5 minutes to complete his presentation. May it please you, Madam Speaker.
Members, the question on the floor is whether the member's time should be extended to for 5 minutes to allow him to complete his statement. All in favor?
Madam Speaker, I thank you for your generosity, not his. So, Madam Speaker, let me get to the root of the matter, because there is a lot of resentment building up, especially on the electricity side. And I'm sure the country will agree with me that when they are called upon to pay estimated bills, what is at the back of their mind is the high price of electricity. That has been a phenomenon for some time, but has gotten worse in recent times. When I was minister, we brought the price down from 40 cents to 23 cents. In 2016, the price was 23 cents. Today, the price of electricity is back up to 40 cents. No, but I'm indicating to you the context. The context. Right. And Madam Speaker, one of the reasons why we have such a high electricity price, among so many things, is this issue of the theft of electricity. Between 15 and 70% of your bill that you pay has to do with electricity theft. And I came here 2 years ago with a proposal to this House, to the Minister, let us address it seriously. It's not a JPSCO problem, it's a national problem. And let us deal with it, because I put forward a solution. And I want the JPSCO to beware, because, as I mentioned, there is resentment. And I remember when we were liberalizing telecommunications, there was resentment against a certain company. And after liberalization, people moved away and drove because of that resentment. I believe that JPSCO has to work with us now, because you see that thing called solar. You hear about what has happened with battery, the price of battery coming down to enable people to generate their own electricity for less than 50% of the current price. And I've said to the government, if you use some of those resources that you have, that you collect every day from the hedge fund, and assist those low-income communities to establish their own solar, inverter, and batteries, you'll be solving two problems. You'll be dealing with electricity theft, and you'll be lowering the price of electricity by 17%. Just so. And the bigger question for JPSCO, as you look to the future, Jamaicans are going to be moving away from your electricity supplies, because there's now a viable 24/7 alternative, because of the price reductions that have occurred for solar panels, inverters, and batteries. And because I have limited time, I won't go into my dissertation as to what the minister, his role as minister, ought to be going forward to make life easier for the Jamaican consumer. I thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Minister, you indicated in your presentation that you got JPS to give you a 3-day schedule now in terms of restoration. What, if any, sanctions do you have if that 3-day restoration period is not given, if any, is not adhered to? The reason I'm saying that, Minister, is that, you know, my citizens had a roadblock this morning in the community of Hopewell to Palmetto Grove. And Minister, I spoke to you about the problem, but I just want to show you another instance of insensitivity by JPS. One community which people came from to be part of that roadblock had nothing wrong with the lines, the poles in that community, nor the transformer. And it took one roadblock for JPS just to flip a switch to give them light in that community. That type of insensitivity is what is fueling the frustration out there. And furthermore, in your presentation on page 10 of 12, that JPS has concerns about their workers going out. They don't need to, because whenever people have roadblock and it's a JPS crew, they're the first one that they will let through. So tell them they don't have to worry about that. The people are wanting them to come and to live up to the expectations that we have of JPS as a provider, of the sole provider of electricity in this country.
Thank you very much, member. You have been in touch with me. Let me answer the question first. You have been in touch with me, one of the most active colleagues in relation to your constituents. The answer to your first question is not much other than what I just did a while ago, which is basically to let them know that we're not satisfied and they need to improve and do better. So that is something, again, that, as the member said, in relation to the license, we'll have another opportunity in 2027 to see how we can fix that. And the fact of the matter is that so far, despite the 3 weeks and the level of frustration that has gone out into the open in terms of people demonstrating, I fully understand. But again, I want to say that, as you said, by protocol, safety protocols, they are not going to respond and sometimes, and I think the incident you're mentioning is probably a coincidence that they were scheduled to be there. But leave that as it may. The bottom line is they need to just connect everybody as quickly as possible so that we don't have to argue about this. Thank you.
Yeah. Minister, just if you could just let us know the disaster fund of around 50 million US that is established for this kind of eventuality. What are the parameters of it in terms of for JPS to access it? Do they have to incur a certain amount of expenditure on restoration for their own account before they can draw down on the fund? And what is the time frame for them being able to access those resources? I'm interested to know how that works.
What I do know is that the OUR has oversight of the fund. As I said before, the fund comes from tariffs. So the last major hurricane we had was 20 years ago, so it obviously has built up. I know that they did draw down $5 million to prepare for the hurricane season, and I do know that in the contract they have the ability to make claims to the OUR that are vetted and, of course, assessed and paid if found and deemed within the fund. The question is in relation to what are the parameters in terms of how and what they are. I can get that for you. I don't have it offhand, but the truth of the matter is that the OUR being an independent regulatory body, I will request it. But it's important because even the whole issue of the possibility of using that fund to assist with cash flow, even as an advance, while they speed up and do what they need to do in order to be able to restore, must be something that should have been thought of and a conversation had on that, whether it is possible or not. But just to send out estimated bills because you have the ability to do that does not sit right, especially in a time of a disaster. So I'll get that information for your member. Good question.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, if you permit me, I wanted to make one suggestion and then ask one question. So the suggestion that I would like to make is that if the schedule from the JPS were reliable and believable, I believe that we would have less of a tendency for any demonstration. So if that is done, then I think we would be good. The question I wanted to ask, Minister, surrounds a statement that you made that I found offensive. And that statement was that members on this side don't have the authority to open their mouth. The moral authority to speak on the matter. So, Minister, I want to just point out and remind you that every one of us come here based on some people who voted for us and send us here to represent them. So regardless of what the situation is, I believe that it is not fitting for you to carte blanche say that no member, that no member over here has the moral authority. If you're jiving your friend, you jive your friend. But as a member of parliament, duly elected and sent here, I take offense to it because I can tell you that I will never give up my moral authority to speak on behalf of the people who sent me here. And the bullyism might work outside, but it don't work in here, and it don't work with this member of parliament.